gorgeous. Welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, which features interviews with inspiring women entrepreneurs from around the world. Thank you so much for joining us today. Now, without further ado, I'll hand you over to your host, Holly Wharton.
Hello and welcome to the Ready to Bloom podcast, episode 109. This is your host, Holly Wharton. I'm here with today's special guest, Jen Smith. Jen wants to live in a world where passion trumps profession. Sundays are dedicated to reading books, and cheese is considered a superfood. She founded the Freedom Leap whilst running her first business, Jen Smith Social Media, to inspire women to quit their jobs and start a business they love. Having coached women through that process, Jen realized the current incarnation of the Freedom Leap wasn't quite right. Hitting pause on the business and taking a deep breath allowed her to explore a passion project, Mandala meditation, the process of doodling and coloring mandalas to quiet the mind. Jen is now teaching overwhelmed and stressed out entrepreneurs how to meditate by drawing mandalas and is selling and licensing her artwork as well as painting mandala murals for other soulful business owners. She's also reignited the Freedom Leap, focusing on sharing her experience of leaping into her authentic self. Welcome, Jen.
Thank you for having me, Holly.
I'm so excited to talk to you about so many things.
I know. I'm excited too.
So why don't you start out by telling us a little bit about your background and your business journey and how you got to where you are today. And I know you're currently in a state of transition, so...
Absolutely. Yeah. I'm more than happy to share that. So I have been in business for 2 years and 4 months. And prior to that, I was working in London, commuting into the city 2 hours each way every day to do a job for a startup company working in social media and marketing. And as many entrepreneurs will be able to resonate, I was just stressed out, burnt out, didn't want to do it anymore. And I had been job hunting for what felt like forever to find something else closer to home. And for whatever reason, just wasn't getting any jobs. And, you know, I'd have great interviews, but someone else would come in and they'd have more experience or whatever reason. Those jobs didn't materialize. And I found myself at rock bottom and just feeling completely lost. And it was from that place I decided to just quit and just take a gamble. And I just felt at that point anything was better than what I was currently doing. And so I handed in my notice and did my 30-day resignation period and just started telling my friends and family, you know, I'm going freelance. I've got skills in social media. That's where I'm going to start. I can write. I've got all these skills. If you know anyone who would benefit from them, please, you know, pass on my details. And from that, I picked up my first few clients and I birthed the business Jen Smith Social Media, which is still running today. I train other entrepreneurs and business owners how to use social media and strategize and kind of get over their technophobia when it comes to social media. So I do that for a couple of days a week, which is still awesome and really fun. But about, I don't know, this time last year, I'd been running that business full time and I just found it wasn't completely fulfilling. I felt like it wasn't necessarily my kind of soul's purpose. And I'd been doing a lot of personal development. And I just kind of felt like, oh, there's something more I have to give. I didn't know what. And so I went through a journey of reading lots of books and doing lots of exercises and courses. And the idea of freedom really came to mind and resonated with me. I don't know if you've read The Desire Map by Danielle Laporte.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So in that book, I went through that process and it's all about identifying your core desired feelings and how you want to feel on a daily basis, not necessarily what you want to achieve. And freedom really was the strong one that just kind of came flying out at me. And when I realized it was that word, I was like, yes, that's exactly how I want to feel. And that's why I couldn't stay in a job. And that's why I couldn't, you know, work for the man and all that kind of stuff. So from there, I created the Freedom Leap, which at that time, the idea that came through was to help other women quit their jobs and start a business, because that was my freedom leap at that time. That, you know, I felt like I could pass on a lot of knowledge and support and coach women through that. And so, you know, and up until last month, I've been coaching other women on the side, and that was kind of my second business. And although it was wonderful to see the transformation of those women that I was working with, it still wasn't quite right. And I realized, you know, I tried a lot of different things in that business and lots of stuff didn't work, and I'd had my fair share of failures in it. And it got to a point where I just felt like I was wading through mud. and it just wasn't right still. So I decided to hit pause and just give it some breathing room and go back to focusing on the social media. And whilst I was doing all of that, I had come across this process of meditation through drawing mandalas. So it kind of found me. I saw something on Facebook, these beautiful images, and I picked up a pen and just started doodling them myself. I just thought, oh, they're pretty. I'd like to kind of give them a go. And that's what I did. And through doing that a few times, I started to realize when I was drawing that I'd slip into this focus, this state of flow. And my mind would just shut up, which I know for so many women, especially that I work with, and lots of friends and business owners, you know, it's hard to turn that off. It's really difficult.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, so I just started doing it as I suppose a spiritual practice, and allowed myself to just play with it, and it became something I did every day. And then I started telling people about it, friends and family and clients. And the interest was huge. I was kind of bowled over by how much people were curious about it and wanted to know more. And so in the last few months, I've just started sharing it with people. I've done workshops. I'm running a live workshop next week online. I've created a colouring ebook and just started exploring it and having fun with it on the side of my social media business. So in a convoluted, long-winded way, that is where I am right now. And I feel like I'm still in this kind of exploration zone, and I'm still figuring stuff out. And the Freedom Leap is becoming reincarnated in a different way. And yeah, so it's all kind of go and exciting. But that's my journey so far.
I love hearing people's journeys and how their businesses evolve.
Yeah.
Now, it all makes very sense, and it's all very coherent the way you've explained it, but I'm sure along the way there were some speed bumps as you were going through those transitions. I say that because I've experienced that as well. So what's it like for you when you start realizing that your business isn't quite fitting you and it needs to change?
It's very stressful. I think, you know, so many people are scared to allow that change to happen. And especially when it's so dear to the heart. I think in my social media business, it felt a bit more easy because things evolved over time. I took away services, I added new ones in, I changed stuff. And because I wasn't attached to it, and it wasn't my soul's purpose. So it just didn't feel so difficult. But when I started doing the Freedom Leap, especially, when I started to realize it wasn't right, I kind of felt like, no, this is meant to be right. This is meant to be my purpose. And it was actually really difficult to look at and really hard to admit to myself that it wasn't right. And I also felt, and I know before we got on the call, we were talking about how when you change something in your business, or even in life in general, I had this fear that people would think I was flaky, and that, oh, here Jen goes again, doing something new. Let's see how long this one lasts. And I know that is not just me. I know that other people have had that too. And
I've had that many times. So.
Yeah, and that's really hard because you don't want to come across as some flaky person. You know, there has been, especially in society here, especially in the UK, if you are focused and if you commit yourself to one thing, one career, one profession, you will be successful. And there isn't this space for more creative types that like to explore new things. You know, it's not been the tradition that is a route to success. And so I think it was really challenging for me to accept that by nature I like to try new things, and I'm creative, and the way I express myself in business and in life changes, and I kind of, you know, it may not last that long, but I try it and then I move on to the next thing. And so there was definitely a lot of fear around, well, if I change my mind again, am I going to be successful? Am I just holding myself back from better financial success? And yeah, there was a lot around people's judgment of me as well, which has been difficult. And I would say I'm still dealing with that. You know, it pops up. You know, you never really get past it, I don't think.
Yeah, it's funny because my business has also gone through many different kind of incarnations, and it keeps evolving. And two of my previous businesses involved social media, so I feel like on a parallel track to you.
Absolutely.
But I find that as I grow and as I learn new things, my business has to evolve because otherwise it just gets stuck in the past.
Oh, absolutely. And, we're always learning. Entrepreneurial types I have found, love to learn. And there's just no way you can stay still, and there's no way you can kind of not evolve. So, I think it is just a natural process. It's kind of giving into it. I found that when I just give into it, it tends to just flow a lot better, and definitely trying to learn not to take other people's judgments and expectations of me on board, and just do what feels right at that time, and just recognize and allow that myself to know that in the future that feeling that's right now might not feel right, and there'll be something else that feels like flow or the zone of genius, or whatever you want to call it, and that's okay too.
Yeah. Now, one of the things that you talk a lot about on your Freedom Leap business is how to tame your inner critic and find personal freedom. And freedom is a huge value for me as well, because I've been through many points in my past where I didn't feel a sense of freedom. And so I've realized how important that is to me. So what would you say are your top tips on how to tame that inner critic and find personal freedom? Because I think that's a big value for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Absolutely. And I think for me, the best way to explain it is how I've managed to do it. So I've tried a lot of different techniques, exercises, therapies, all sorts of different things to try and quieten the inner critic and listen more to I think the true voice that's inside. And I've done different things. EFT has been huge for me, and I know that you're an advocate for that. And, the tapping through blocks and releasing resistance around things has been really helpful. I think my best advice really is that there's a lot of ways that you can tame your inner critic. There's a lot of techniques and there's a lot of tools, and it's about just starting to try what resonates and keep going until you find something that does really feel like it's working. EFT worked for me, but I've tried all sorts of different things.
I saw you mentioned Psych K on your website, and that's my business now. So I love seeing that.
So I will tell you a bit about how I'm going to carry on these experiments. And Psych K is something I want to try because I've heard about it, but it's not something I've experienced personally. I've got friends who have done it, and so I'm still. Although I found, for me, EFT and tapping, and also meditation, so the Mandala stuff that came through too, they have been my kind of key things that have helped me tame my inner critic, and they are the daily things that I will commit to for staying even and just keeping that voice quiet. But I'm really interested in other therapies or techniques or tools that other people are finding useful. So the Freedom Leap now is more of an experiment. So I'm going to be trying different things over the next year, and I'm going to be documenting the process of doing that. So I'm going to just, I've heard that acupuncture can be brilliant for kind of clearing energy and taming that inner critic and that voice. Like you said, Psych K and all sorts of different things. So I'm committing to just giving them all a go, documenting it, because again, I think, if someone's coming to this place where they're realizing that they want to live authentically, they want to find a way to live in a state of freedom, and they, have this inner voice that's maybe full of fear or judgment, there's lots of options open to them. And where do you start? And so what I think would be helpful to share with other people is just trying all these different things so that they can see from my experience which ones resonate and then go for it themselves. Because I think everyone's going to be different. Yes. We all have our own way of getting there, and also it's an ongoing process, which no one likes to hear, and even I don't like to admit. But I don't think you ever kind of clear all your stuff, and life is amazing and rosy. I just don't think that's possible, unfortunately. But I feel like I've removed so many big blocks out of my life. But there's still stuff coming up, and there's still new things to look and explore. And I'm sure you can totally relate to that, Holly.
Totally. I mean, when I first trained in Psych K, I was using it every single day. Yeah. I would identify 15 to 20 beliefs. I would transform them at the end of my workday. And I just went through this process of just clearing stuff, changing beliefs. And now it's kind of the point where I don't use it every day, obviously, because I've changed so many things. But I still hit the upper limit, and I still, as I grow, I hit a new ceiling, and then I have to work through that, and then I hit a new ceiling. And so it's like there's always stuff to clear, but I find that it's less and less.
Absolutely.
So
I
it's
think
not like a never-ending stream of stuff, but it does diminish.
absolutely. And I think, obviously there are some big blocks and big beliefs that are limiting. And I think when you start to really look at those, and once they're out the way, it is more niggly stuff that kind of comes through. But what's interesting that you say, obviously, about the daily practice, I have found for me, and I think, maybe I'm still going through that journey, that if I don't do the meditation, especially every day, the mandala meditation, if I let that kind of slip, usually when I'm in a good space, I'm like, oh, I'm fine now, I don't need that. And then, I kind of don't keep up with that daily practice, I find myself slipping back into that space that's not particularly healthy for me. And so I'm learning that I definitely need to kind of commit to it, and it's just like brushing teeth. You gotta do it.
Yeah.
And that's been a big learning for me, especially in the last few weeks. And my personality type is not one for routine, so so I'm like rebel against anything that's routine. So it has been a huge learning to accept that using it daily actually just keeps me even, and not it doesn't allow me to slip back even when I'm feeling good. It's still a good tool to use.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. I have a spiritual group that we have these kind of personal exercises that we do every day that are kind of like meditation, and that I do every single day, no matter what. There's no exception.
Yeah,
just
I love
no
it.
Excuses. It happens.
Absolutely, because because you can get into that happy space, and that's great. And I love it when you're in the flow and everything's all good, and you just think, I don't need that anymore, But it is so important. It is just like, brushing your teeth. It's hygiene for your soul.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh, I might coin that one. I haven't said that before.
That's a good soundbite.
I'm writing that down. Awesome.
Yes, very good. So I love how you're documenting this process for yourself. Now, I think one of the things that people struggle with the most when they're first starting on this journey is awareness, because it's like sometimes we're so used to hearing the mind chatter, the negative stuff going on, that we don't even realize how to identify what it is or what it's saying, because it's just become such a normal part of our lives. So how do you recommend that people become aware of that?
Well, it's definitely, I completely resonate with that. And what I've found is actually through meditation, so the Mandala meditation especially, I've been able to sort of step back from that voice and disassociate myself, because I think when you're just coming around to realizing that this inner critic is there and it feels such a part of you, and you can almost feel blended in as one, and it's very difficult to sort of remove yourself from it and go, okay, it's just a story, it's just a voice, it's just my ego talking. I think that's a real challenge for lots of people who are just kind of finding their feet with it. And for me, the meditation helps me just quieten it down, focus, and then look at it objectively and kind of say, well, what am I going to learn from this? Why am I telling myself this story? Why is that inner critic there? What is the fear that's coming up? And trying not to have too much emotional attachment to it, but just recognize that there's a reason for it happening. There's a reason this inner voice is there trying to keep me safe. It's trying to stop me from facing something that it thinks is a threat. So if I can look at it from that perspective of, okay, well, obviously it's trying to keep me safe, where's the love from it? Where is it? What's it trying to show me? That is just, again, it's practice. And I would say it's a bit like learning to drive a car. You can intellectually understand it, but you just have to keep going out on the road for it to become a habit. But it's definitely about that disassociation, and there's lots of ways of doing that. But for me, the meditation helps me separate myself from my ego or my inner critic, or whatever word you want to call it.
So can you tell us a little bit more about the Mandala meditation? Because I think a lot of people think of meditation as sitting in a quiet place, quieting your mind, not sitting with a pen and paper and drawing something. So explain to us how that works.
Of course. So in fact, I had that whole experience. So I thought, I know the benefits of meditation, being able to chill out, quieten your voice, raise your vibration. It's got a lot of health benefits. And so I was trying to do that whole thing of sitting down, finding 20 minutes, sort of crossing my legs and hoping for the best. And I really struggled to not let my mind wander, and I often fell asleep actually, which which is
maybe you
apparent.
needed the rest.
Maybe I did, and apparently it's not a bad thing. But yeah, I really struggle with that traditional meditation. So mandala meditation is different in that the process of putting pen to paper, and the mandalas, if you don't know what they are, they're like floral kind of designs. They're very cyclical. It's like lots of circles and patterns radiating outwards, and when you draw them, you repeat a pattern in a circle, and then you go to the next layer outwards, and it kind of blooms. And that process of repeating a pattern all the way around and then moving to the next layer allows you to kind of get into that state of flow and just slip into meditation without having to sit there and think about it or do something. It just helps you channel and focus into the pen and the actual process of drawing. And it's funny because I was doing it in front of the television. I was doing it whilst my fiance was listening to like rap music, but I could still get into that flow. And that's the best way for me to explain it, is you just get into the zone of just focusing on the one thing that you're doing, and that's what helps quieten the mind and helps you get into that really lovely state of calm and acceptance. So, and what's beautiful when I've taught the mandala meditations in workshops is you're basically pouring your energy onto the paper. So if you've had a really frantic day, your mandalas might not be, graceful. Your designs might be quite frenetic or sharp or jaggedy, but it's okay because it's like an expression of how you've been feeling. And when I found that I did this workshop, there was 37 people in the room, and they all had the opportunity to spend sort of 10, 15 minutes creating their own and just listening to music and getting into that state. And they all got to share the designs, and everyone's was different. Everyone's was unique. Everyone's was beautiful in their own individual way. But yes, it was very much a case of them getting into that kind of expressing that energy through the pen. And I'd just like to say as well, if anyone's interested in it, you don't have to be good at art. My art teacher at school told me basically not to expect a career in it. And she just kind of was like, you just do what you need to do to pass your exams, and I'm going to focus my attention on these people who can paint. Which was, I believed for a long time I wasn't artistic or I couldn't draw. But this has proven to me that that's absolutely not the case. And I know, having taught it now to other people, that you really don't need to be artistic or creative or believe that you are to be able to draw them. There's some patterns that I teach and some kind of techniques. But it's just about allowing yourself to express how you're feeling through the pen, and what comes out is just that expression of it.
And do you colour them in afterwards, or do you keep them in black and white?
I do colour them in. So I have a free colouring in book for anyone that wants to just get a flavour of it, because colouring in, again, can help you slip into that state of flow. I find drawing is just deeper for me, but the colouring in is kind of like maybe an entry point to it. So I do have a colouring in book if it's free, if anyone wants to print it off and have a go. I do sometimes colour my own in, but I get more benefit from drawing them. So it kind of depends. And I know with people that I've taught it to, some of them prefer just to keep colouring them in. And there's so many kind of adult colouring in books now. It's such a hot trend at the moment.
They're all over the place. I just went to Waterstones the other day and I went, where did these all come from?
No, it's like they've just exploded. And I keep seeing them in like the supermarket, and it's crazy. So I think, if colouring is your way of getting into that state, then awesome. But I know when I'm teaching people how to draw them, lots of people find that is just deepening it, because it really is their own self-expression. Colouring someone else's designs in is lovely, but if you can really express yourself and create your own, there is just something a little bit more for me, and for some other people that's just a bit more magical, or a bit more, it just deepens that kind of connection. So yeah, it's but colouring in is fun, and it's been lovely to see people taking my designs, colouring them in, and they're all different. People pick different colours and they different patterns, and it's beautiful to see them kind of come alive with colour. So I'm thinking about doing a full-blown colouring in book, and that's a new project kind of in the pipeline as well. So,
and do you use any kind of special pen or paper, or does anything go?
Anything kind of goes. I've got my favourite types of pens. So these they're Papermate fine liners. These just black felt pens, I love them for everything. So for drawing them, I use those. For colouring in, I've got my good old Crayola crayons from when I was a kid, actually.
Wow.
And I still use them, but I've also got some pro markers, which are beautiful kind of watercolor pens. But really, like, whatever you can dig out, it's the process, not necessarily the tools. And also as well, you know, if your mandalas aren't that pretty at the end, don't worry about it. It is the process that's the most important part. Definitely.
And I think that's really important to call out, because it's so easy for us to judge ourselves on the final result, because that's how we've been taught in school.
Right.
But years ago, when I first started painting, I was very lucky in the sense that I got into the flow immediately. And it was like my brain did not function. I just reached for paints, different colors, and it just all kind of unfolded.
Yeah.
And it was not necessarily attractive at the end, or maybe it was, but the process was just so deeply, it was like my brain just went somewhere.
Isn't it nourishing as well when you get into that state, and I absolutely love it. And it's funny because I do think it comes down to sometimes your personality. Like my fiance, he's very analytical. He's he's an engineer, and he's all about kind of logic and then the end result. And when I first started doing the mandalas, he was just like, "What's the point?" Because like, what are you going to do with them afterwards? I was like, "Nothing." Oh, but why? You know? And I was like, it's the doing of them that's so rewarding and so beautiful. And he really struggles to get his head around that. But yeah, I'm so glad you can relate. I just find it so nourishing to do it. It almost doesn't matter what they look like.
Yeah. It just kind of like irons out your brain or something.
Yes. And I loved hearing your description of it's almost like time stops and everything
things
stops.
happen somehow.
Yeah.
But you're not aware of it.
And that for me is meditation, flow meditation. You can call it what you like, really, but that's the result, and that is what's so good for the soul and good for just shutting up that voice in your head.
Yes, exactly. That's interesting. Now that we're talking about this, I'm thinking the two main things in my life that have given me that state have been painting and snowboarding.
Oh, wow. Yes, exercise. Now that's interesting because I know a lot of people who exercise is their state of flow, and I've got a lot of friends who are professional bike riders and mountain bikers, and when they're riding, they're in flow, and it's just the same.
Because there's a rhythm that happens.
Yeah, and I even actually, it's funny, you just reminded me that when I was a teenager, I worked in a coffee shop, and on a busy Saturday, I'd be just making coffees all day at the machine, and I'd get into that state of flow then. You'd kind of get into a rhythm, and we'd all be dancing, or not dancing, but like moving around the kind of coffee shop floor, like in just a total state of flow. Everyone knew where they needed to be, and the day would just fly. And it's that, if you can resonate with that idea, then that's what the mandalas do for me. And it sounds like I said, painting and snowboarding, which I've yet to try. I love it. I should definitely give it a go. I've never been skiing or snowboarding. It's on my wish list.
Good. Well, let me know how it goes for you.
I will.
So, Jen, do you have any women business mentors? Are there any women in business or the art world who inspire you?
Yeah, I mean, a ton. I've got a beautiful, I'm surrounded by beautiful business women around me. I've got some really close business friends who I kind of rely on, and we help each other out. But they're all doing all sorts of different things. So my friend Cara Wild, she's a channel, and she helps people connecting with their soul. I've got a friend called Michelle Wildman. I think you know her.
Yes.
So she's a photographer, and she photographs entrepreneurs. And so I actually find inspiration and support through women doing other sorts of businesses. I find that really helpful because I can see, out of my own sphere, I can see what they're doing and what's working for them. But in terms of, key mentors, I know we are both in the same group with Denise Duffield-Thomas and her Lucky Bitch Money Bootcamp. That's been a really key one for me, working on my money mindset. And Denise has just been a fantastic mentor in showing that you can bust through your blocks and you can be successful, but you don't have to kind of be this person on a pedestal. She's very real and very honest, and I adore her for that, because I think, again, there's this whole perception, especially in the entrepreneurial world, that you kind of have to be this, I don't even know the words, but you have to kind of be on a pedestal. You have to kind of be perfect almost and not have any issues and not have any blocks to be successful. And Denise totally shows you that it's not the case.
Yes, I love that. I love so many things about her, but I just mostly love how real she is and how transparent she is about how she's constantly hitting blocks. She's got a wildly successful business, fantastic program, but the blocks still come.
Absolutely. And someone else that also resonates in that way, and it's a recent resonation because I'd never used to connect with her, was Leonie Dawson.
I love Leonie.
I do now, but when I first heard of her, I was like, yeah, she's cool, but it didn't really kind of resonate, and her stuff was like, yeah, it's fine. But now I really, really connect with what she's doing and how she is. And she's, again, I mean, she is not afraid to be her authentic self. She's not afraid to be kind of kooky and fun and playful and be raw as well. And so the mentors that really resonate with me are those, especially women who are just being true to themselves, living authentically, and being honest and humble about stuff as well. It's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to share the highs and the lows. And I hope, and I think I know, with my own community, that I've been able to demonstrate that too. I'm not trying to pretend to anyone that I've got my shit sorted out, because I don't. I'm still working through it. I'm still, I don't even know if I've definitely found my purpose. Who knows? It might change next year.
Yeah, exactly. As you're going to change. You're not going to be the same person a year from now. So it makes sense that your business would change.
Absolutely.
In some way.
Absolutely. So yeah.
Great. So Jen, how can our listeners or other women benefit from working with you? So I know you've got your free coloring book that they can go to your website and download. You've also got mandala courses. What kinds of things do you offer?
Yeah, so definitely if you're interested in the mandala meditation, by all means come over and download the free colouring in sheets. And if you're around next Monday, which I don't know even when this is going to be out, so it might have
a couple of weeks.
Yeah. So I'm going to be doing a mandala meditation masterclass, and it's going to be available through my site, so you'll be able to join at any time. Okay. And that's if you're really interested in the process of drawing mandalas and want to learn the technique but also have the room to play with it and ask me questions, then that's going to be available as well. And yeah, at the moment that's kind of the best way to get involved. I also hang out a lot on Instagram, so if you're interested, I'm /this is Jen Smith, and I'm just sharing mandalas and bits and pieces there, and it's my new favourite social network. Yes. So if anyone else is kind of addicted to Instagram like I am, come and connect with me, let me know, comment on my stuff, and I'll come and hang out with you too.
Great. And where else can people find you online? What's your best website?
Mandala-meditation.com is the best place. And if you're interested in the Freedom Leap experiment, it's thefreedomleap.co.uk.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Holly. I've loved it. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you for listening. And remember to visit readytobloom.com/109 for the show notes on this episode. Thank you.
Thanks so much for listening to the Ready to Bloom podcast with your host, Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's guests, including links for topics that were discussed at readytobloom.com. That's ready, 2, bloom.com. And if you enjoyed this episode, please remember to head over to iTunes and leave us a quick review of this podcast. Thank you so much.